Good morning. It's Sunday, August 3rd, and this is the Georgia Gang. I'm Russ Spencer in for Lori Geary. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says she's not running for governor, but would win if she did. Congressman Mike Collins announces his bid for U.S. Senate, undeterred by Governor Kemp's support for someone else. And the state election board can't let it go, asking the Justice Department for help in its investigation of President Trump's loss in 2020. Kathy, Phil, Theron, and Brian are here this morning. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Marjorie Taylor Greene ended the speculation with a lengthy post on X saying that if she were running for governor, she would be raising scary amounts of money and clear the field. She wrote, "I am humbled and grateful by the massive statewide support that I have to run for governor. And if I wanted to run, we all know I would win, not even debatable. And only because of that massive statewide support is why I ever considered it in the first place." Greene went on to criticize what she called the good old boy system, writing, "Georgia is long controlled by the good old boy system, and that very established men-only Republican firm is unfortunately overseeing the slow slide from red to blue. The I'll scratch your back if you scratch mine wheeling and dealing at the hunting clubs and country clubs does not reflect the sentiment and issues of the vast majority of Georgia voters." All right. She concluded by saying she might run for governor someday without their blessing. So let's talk about it. Brian, would she have won? And what are Republicans saying behind closed doors to each other about all this?
Well, that post on X is exactly why her candidacy would have been wildly entertaining and would have made Georgia politics the spectator sport of the nation in 2026 if it had happened. I have several issues with the statement. One, there's no data to suggest that she would be able to win a statewide office in a general. If our concern is about Georgia sliding from red to blue, the way to expedite that is to nominate Republicans who can't attract the deciders, those Kemp Warnock voters from 22. Where are they going to go? Marjorie Taylor Greene has deep support amongst parts of the party. She would not be liked by the deciders, those people who get you over 50%. We need to think about that. If we want Republican control, we've got to think about who those voters are going to go for. She suggests that the state's not well run and that she was thinking about it because it needs to be better run. I disagree with that wholeheartedly and with great passion. Republican leadership in this state leads this state with efficiency. It's one of the best governed states in the entire country. We have no unemployment here. We have a booming economy. Things are as they should be. This is a land of opportunity, and that's because of Republican leadership. So I think staying out is the best thing for her. She has a national profile. She is effective in Congress. She has the ear of the president, and she's a thought leader. I know people are going to laugh at that. Look at the things she said the last 3 weeks. I mean, she is leading on foreign affairs, on cryptocurrency, on the big beautiful bill. She's willing to disagree with Trump here and there.
Right.
She's
on
a fascinating
on state issues, right?
Yeah, on Gaza and calling it a genocide. I mean, it's fascinating.
All right. Theron, are Democrats disappointed to not have her to run against, or are they going to run against her anyway?
Of course we were so disappointed, Russ. I mean, we were all hoping that Marjorie Taylor Greene would have gotten in this race for what Brian just displayed. This would have definitely been entertaining. But we got to call balls and strikes. The Georgia GOP at this moment, I think, is in disarray. We're on the verge of witnessing a hot mess because Marjorie Taylor Greene and her 600 and how many words was it? Let's see, 624 word blunt message on X talked about basically something I think we need to really point out. Russ, there was not a single woman on the Republican ticket in 2022. And Phil and Brian, I'm not going to call y'all good old boys because y'all are my friends, but correct me if I'm wrong. We've only had 3 Republican women elect statewide in Georgia. Karen Handel, Tricia Pridemore, and Kathy Cox, right? And that's for the history of this state.
We don't do quotas.
It's not about quotas, but I think what she's inferring, and well, she wasn't inferring, she said it directly, Kathy, is that Georgia GOP, not all of them, but some of them are good old boys who sit in a room and they want to basically handpick people. What I think that she's trying to do is set the frame for not just this campaign, but for future campaigns and really try to pave the way for more women in the GOP. The last thing I'll say is this. Would we have wanted her? Look, Brian is right. She raises money quickly. She's a firebrand. In Washington, she goes back and forth a lot with my girl, Jasmine Crockett, who's a congresswoman from Dallas, Texas. But I do think that she still has a role in the party in Georgia, locally, and people better pay very close attention to what she's saying, because I think that if you're a Republican on the ticket and Marjorie Taylor Greene is out there, and as Brian's talking about how outspoken she's been, she's going to be involved in these races. She just won't be a candidate, but she's definitely going to be involved.
What's your take, Phil?
Well, I'll be brief. This is Marjorie being Marjorie. I've said for over a month on this show that she's not going to run statewide. She's got the perfect district in that northwest Georgia area from Rome up to Lookout Mountain. She's a prolific fundraiser, as has been pointed out. She's right where she wants to be. It was a great publicity shot. But the Republicans aren't in disarray, because one thing that unites Republicans in the center in this state, which, yes, we need the center to win, both parties need the center to win, is the Democrat Party, even in Georgia, has been hijacked by the far left. I mean, you've got these leading candidates talking about boys and girls sports. They always supported the Biden open borders policy. Brian's right. It's a very well-run state. We have a AAA bond rating. Unemployment is not a problem. Economic boom. And so the Democrats have no policy issues at all. I can't think of any, except they hate Trump. And there's one good issue, maybe affordable housing. Both parties need to address that.
Medicaid
but I
expansion.
think the Republican Party is in good shape. Yeah, we're going to have primaries, but so is the Democratic Party. And I don't see any Democrat leaders running for governor that can win.
All right, give me a quick response, if you would, Kathy, and then we'll move on to the Senate.
Well, I think it's been interesting to watch her kind of evolution from just sort of yelling in the stands to now starting to have a more nuanced policy discussion. I think she's late to the table on talking about genocide in Palestine, but then everybody else is too. So that'll be interesting to see how it evolves. I think she's looking at something more national than necessarily at the state, but she's going to go for whatever she wants to do in the future.
All right, let's move on, if you don't mind. Congressman Mike Collins, a self-described MAGA workhorse, has joined the race for the Republican nomination to take on Jon Ossoff for U.S. Senate. His announcement this week came days after Governor Kemp informed him and others that he will be supporting Derek Dooley.
It's time to send a trucker to the U.S. Senate to steamroll the radical left, deliver on President Trump's America First agenda, and put the people of Georgia back in the driver's seat.
President Trump has yet to weigh in, so let's bring the panel back in. It's a really fascinating circumstance. You've got Mike Collins getting a lot of endorsements, even though Governor Kemp has said that he's going to support Derek Dooley. Jason Anavatarte, the Senate Majority Leader. What do you think about all this, Phil?
Well, that's a good point. He's certainly getting a lot of support from the Republicans in the legislature, which is great because that's statewide, and you've got their whole network of people working for him. And let's remember, too, that Mike Collins was the first one who sponsored the popular Laken Riley Act, which cracks down on illegal alien criminals. And so he's got an edge within the Republican base, I think, just because of that. I think it's a little too early to poll right now, but Derek Dooley, that we've mentioned that Governor Kemp supports, a family friend, I'm really surprised. I said this last week, the rollout, if there is no rollout of Derek Dooley. He's not taking media interviews, to my knowledge. We don't know where he stands on key public policy issues. I think it's very important that he get out now and do some interviews because, as you point out, Collins is raking in money. He's bringing in endorsements. No one knows where Dooley stands.
Do you have any sense of when Dooley's going to make his announcement?
I disagree with Phil here, and we've talked about this privately, because unless he's ready, they shouldn't be rolling him out doing interviews, right? The fact that they're not rolling out shows that there's still a lot of work to be done. Well, this is the thing I always preach. Everybody loves an outsider until you throw an outsider in front of a TV camera with a bunch of microphones. And they're going to say things that might kill them in a primary or kill them in a general because they don't know. If I need his advice on how to run an offense, he probably could, tell me immediately. But he needs to hear from political people to hone in on an appropriate message to win a Georgia primary. I think that it's very telling that Mike Collins is moving ahead with this. What we're seeing is President Trump has told Governor Kemp, I don't think Derek Dooley can win. And that has not been in the media, but it is certainly in the discussion in Republican circles that conversation happened. So we know Trump's not going to be with Derek Dooley. So the biggest elephant in the room is still sitting out there, and Mike Collins is pushing his chips to the middle of the table, saying, I think the elephant in the room is going to be with me. And that at the end of the day, in 2026, without Brian Kemp on the ballot, he's got the best brand in Georgia politics, but he's not on the ballot, that Trump's endorsement means a lot more when it comes to the working class, MAGA voters who are going to be determinative in a Georgia Republican primary. Kemp is risking a lot here by putting all of his political capital into this. Reports this week that he's warned supporters not to veer off or there be consequences. I'm really fascinated by that because he's still got another year to go, and he's got to keep the legislators together to push any agenda forward.
Well, Kathy and Theron, I'm interested, do you think Jon Ossoff would rather run against Mike Collins or Derek Dooley?
Oh, gosh. Well, today, Derek Dooley, because there's no campaign there. But, I think with Mike Collins, I just listened to Collins say on a radio show that people need to get off Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security. And I tell you what, I'm going to say that every day till 2026, because that is a large swath of the electorate. And people are very concerned about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid in particular.
You're talking about fraud, Kathy.
They always say fraud, but what they really mean is changing the terms. And I think that's going to be a real campaign issue by the time we get to this time in 2026. So he may have, handed Ossoff something really juicy to talk about.
Theron, what do you think?
I'll go back to what I said earlier. I mean, if this doesn't sound like a hot mess, then what is it? I mean, you just heard Phil and Brian take us inside of what Republican circles are saying. Kathy, as always, does a great job of talking about how this is going to affect the state and what Jon Ossoff needs to do. But, whether I think he's calling himself a warhorse or workhorse, I mean, it is what it is. Mike Collins is an extremist. He's a MAGA extremist, and he's going to do everything he can to appease to this president, not only for the endorsement, but to Kathy's point, I mean, he is, when you look this guy up and look at this rollout, I mean, we're talking about the right of the right. So you ask the question, can Jon Ossoff, who does he want to run against? I think Jon Ossoff is sitting back right now and just telling voters in Georgia, like, hey, this is what the GOP in Georgia are giving you. And I think he's going to continue to be this bipartisan person that works for everybody in the state. The last thing I would say is this, is that you got a sitting governor. I mean, let's just bring this, who's basically calling, based on Brian's report, and the president not supporting. I mean, that is disarray. And what I'm saying to you is that I've said on this show that this politically abusive relationship between Trump and Kemp has been going on for a long time, but this bromance is over. Okay. And so we got to see how it all pans out.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up, the state election board asked for federal help investigating the presidential election of 5 years ago. We'll be right back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
The MAGA wing of the state election board can't leave 2020 in the rearview mirror. They've asked the U.S. Justice Department to help its investigation of President Trump's loss in Fulton County. President Trump has described the three favorably as pit bulls for their support of his claim that the election was stolen. They say Fulton County has ignored a subpoena for documents since last November on Election Day, as it turns out. A Democratic gubernatorial candidate, Keisha Lance Bottoms, responded in a statement saying it's ridiculous for the state election board to spend our tax dollars chasing bizarre and false conspiracy theories about the 2020 election. Every Republican candidate for governor should condemn this wasteful attempt at election denial by the election board. So what's your reaction to that, Brian?
What they're speaking to, there is a segment of the Georgia Republican primary electorate that is still convinced that there were irregularities and problems with Fulton County's election in 2020. But we also know that talking about 2020 with the overall electorate in Georgia is a political loser. And it ain't even close. This is not what Republicans need to be talking about in 2025, going into a monumental election in 2026. I do not want Republicans running for office across the state to be asked about this, because then it forces them to look like they are focused on the rearview mirror, that they're focused on something in 2020 that Georgians have moved on from. This case has been examined, investigated into infinity, and there's nothing there. The case is closed. For the sake of the Republican Party and keeping majorities, let's move on.
Now, the election board also voted to hire Hope Cohn, the wife of the board's former executive director, Mike Cohn, as a temporary paralegal. The chair of the board, John Fervier, objected, saying she's not qualified and questioning the properness of the hiring process. Kathy, what do you say?
Well, he's right. I mean, this is a job to fill for a paralegal. I understand about 40 people who are paralegals applied for the job. None of them got an interview. Hope Cohn is the wife, as you said, of the prior executive director. It looks like a sweetheart deal. She was not interviewed by at least all of the people that are on that board, the 5 that are on the board. And it's just an improper procedure. Whether or not she's the right one, I'm not going to deign to say right now. I don't think she is because she's not a paralegal. But you know, you owe a process. This is a state election board. Everything should be by the book, methodical, you know, kind of run the traps and fair. And that's not what is happening right now. But I also want to get back to your point, Brian, about this 2020 being over. Fulton County got a letter of reprimand. We instituted a monitor as required. We did all of the legal obligations to close this case out. It was closed out. So it's closed. And so I think we have to really look closely. People ought to be alarmed about the state election board. Just the fact that we would say the MAGA wing did something. There shouldn't be a MAGA wing on the state election board. It ought to be people that, you know, you're not entirely sure how they vote, or maybe you are, but they don't express that in everything. This is about procedures, process, and the law, and they are not following any of those.
Do you agree with Brian that this is a loser for Republicans?
They are designated Republicans and Democrats on the board, and the chairman it's a terrible chairman, by the way. He doesn't know how to run meetings properly, and there are documents that have been turned over from Fulton County. Russ is right in his introduction there, and this is what bothers me. Yes, I partially agree with Brian. The Republican Party has the policies. They're going to be talking about all public policy issues. Democrats are struggling with that, but I will say this, and I have to correct the AJC and others who say this: the Trump campaign never had its day in court in Fulton County ever. They had evidence. Maybe some of it was wrong and stupid. Maybe some of it was correct when it comes to election integrity. But they never had their day in court. Every Superior Court judge recused themselves. They never had a court case. It's a lie that the AJC keeps repeating and the Associated Press keeps repeating. And then when it was finally turned over to another judge, the time ran out. So I think everybody, both parties, ought to be for election integrity and transparency. The legislature has said the state elections board needs to do rulemaking. Now, I think it needs to be clarified. I think that's been a problem that we've discussed on the gang. But I don't have a problem with the 3 Republicans. I don't think they're extremists. I think they're extremely intelligent people that are trying to do a job, and so is the Democrat, frankly. But this business of calling them extremists is absurd.
Darren?
Look, it was pathetic in 2020, and it's pathetic now. The fact that you have people who are raising false concerns about this election. And this is a slippery slope, to borrow a term from my friend Phil here, because it's for both parties. We want a fair, secure, open election to every eligible registered voter, active voter in the state in 2026. If we do not really think about replacing this election board, I'm gonna take it there. These people who appoint these individuals, these women and men, we may need a new elections board, because what I'm afraid of as a Georgian, as an American who tries to bring civility to politics when there is none right now, is that we will be back on the national stage as a laughingstock. And this election board, just based on their actions and their trying to hire people, going back to 2020, they have made their minds up. No matter the outcome, they're going to protest. And I agree with B-Rob and I agree with Phil that as long as the Republicans are talking about 2020, Democrats, we're going to win. Because a lot of people believe that divided our state. It was a fair election, no evidence to show that there was any voter tampering and that stuff. And so, but there is a little bit of a sentiment out there. You heard Phil talk about it, because what it's turning into, Russ, is that there's still the belief that they didn't get their fair day in court and there was all this stuff that was going on. It motivated them to turn out in droves in 2024. So Democrats, we better realize what's going on, but we need to have boots on the ground and be ready to go to the polls in 2026.
All right. Thanks very much. When we come back, we're going to talk about the new school year in Gwinnett County and some new safety measures you'll see in the schools.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Children head back to school in Georgia this week, and the state's largest system in Gwinnett is rolling out a weapon detection system at every middle and high school. They tested it out last year at sporting events. The district says elementary schools will have a school resource officer instead on site. The new tech uses a sensor and artificial intelligence to distinguish between everyday items and a possible threat. The school district says unlike traditional metal detectors, it can distinguish between weapons and everyday items like phones and keys. And it costs something like $20 million, which doesn't sound like a lot considering how many schools there are in Gwinnett County.
This is an investment in school safety, but it's also an investment in public trust. I think parents across Georgia, across the country, this is a #1 concern. Every time your daughter or son hops out the car and walks through those doors right now. The legislature has really led on this. We have given school grants around $50,000 per school to every school in the state in recent years. We've added funding to local districts to fund those resource officers. It doesn't cover the full cost. It's about $45,000 a year per officer. Obviously, it costs a little more than that. But that is something that when you roll in, and I'm one of these parents, Russ, when I roll into the school, there's 2 Atlanta police officers there. Theron's kids go there too. And I just feel so much better knowing they're there.
What do you think there?
Well, you know, Russ, and the panelists have heard me talk about this. I still believe the one issue that we all should unite around is having more funding to make sure that our children are safe and they come home alive. Yes, the legislature has done some. Shout out to Speaker Burns and others who went back to the legislature. Brian and Phil and Kathy, you know, I pleaded with them to say, hey, we got to do more. $20 million is a lot of money, but I don't think there's any price cap to make sure that we have the safety. But the other thing I would say is that, and I got to look at this, I want to also make sure we have a armed resource officer in every single school in our state. Because as B-Rob talked about, yes, we do see that presence, but we need the training to make sure that when we have another situation like we had in Barrow County, we have people there who are trained, who are alert and ready, and have the technology. This technology that you just talked about, Russ, is good to make sure you have it on the front end to make sure that we're not allowing weapons into schools, because when they're in schools, it harms people. But I definitely think this is a step in the right direction, and we got to wait and see what other school systems will do.
I know, Phil, that you wanted to talk about the felony charges against the Cobb County Superior Court Clerk Connie Taylor for destroying public records, according to the Attorney General. She was indicted by a grand jury in Cobb County.
That's right, and this has been going on for 2 years. When the whistleblowers first started exposing this, it's actually shocking. I think there's bipartisan concern, because I've talked to both Democrats and Republicans, elected officials in Cobb County, that this has gone on far enough. I don't know what took Attorney General Chris Carr so long, frankly, to indict this person. It's been a mess over in that office, and so let the chips fall where they may, but this is a welcomed move.
Do you have a take on that, Kathy?
Well, I think, you know, this sort of just shines the light on the fact that these clerks are able to keep passport fees and amass. I think they said she collected $450,000 that she could use for her personal use.
And apparently it was legal, which I
it's
found
legal,
shocking.
and it needs to be dealt with. You know, the General Assembly can remove this option, and they need to do it. And you know,
she's also accused of destroying documents too.
Well, she is. You talked about that, but I want to just talk about this concern that these people are pocketing tons of money, and they're using county staff to do that work. You know, so the taxpayers are paying for it, but she's getting the profits, so to speak.
I would say this, as a person who last minute needed a passport, I don't want to speak for you all, but the office, I can't speak for all counties, but I know the counties that I've gone to, it's a system in place, and it's not their fault. Yes, we can look at it, Kathy, I agree with you, but like they do have a role in working with the federal government to get the passports through. It's always been public, and let's just be honest, here we go. This is one thing we love about the show. It's been a great one today. That's one of the reasons why the clerk position is an attractive position, because you have a salary, but you also have the passport fees that go on top of that salary as well.
All right, let's save some time for winners and losers. That's coming up next.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, we'll start at this end. Brian?
My winner is State Representative Houston Gaines, who announced his campaign for the 10th District and raised $510,000 on his first day. In my entire 30 years in politics, I've never seen that happen. Extraordinary. And a loser is Hank Johnson and other Democrats who are saying that the big, beautiful bill will lead to 37 nursing home closures. The Georgia Healthcare Association has come out and said that's a complete lie, that they are held harmless in that legislation.
All right, Theron?
My first winner is going to be Tom Cousins. We lost a giant this year, this week, at 93 years of age. He did so much as a developer, Eastlake Foundation,
Incredible.
East Lake Court. But he was a person who really focused on family, his love for golf, his love for his beautiful wife and his family. So definitely want to offer my condolences. And next is the Atlanta Business Chronicle and J.P. Morgan Chase. Jamie Dimon was in town this week, was in Buckhead talking about growth in the city of Atlanta, all the representation they have here, talked about some of the trends we're seeing with the economy. So shout out to those organizations for bringing them down.
Phil?
I definitely agree with Tom Cousins. What a great man and a great civic leader and philanthropist and developer. And and Jamie Dimon's a winner too. He's agreeing with Trump on the tariffs, and we're bringing in billions and billions of dollars that we never had before in revenue. My loser is the state Supreme Court. I'm really tired of these judges dragging their feet. The State Court of Appeals has already approved the state law signed by Kemp that the Trump people who were dragged into this mess were indicted. They've had to have their pay attorneys. They need to have their fees recouped, and the state Supreme Court needs to act on that and have these people made whole.
Kathy, you get the last word.
Okay, I'll be quick. I just want to thank a whole bunch of people that talked to me this week about how much they enjoy the Georgia Gang. So I just want to say shout out to the nature girls at Cascade Nature Preserve. They're out there walking every morning at 8:30, and I saw them the other day. Lionel Woodyard at the airport talked to me the whole way back to baggage claim, and we had a good chat about the city of Atlanta. And then a whole bunch of friends at the Halidom Eatery on Moreland Avenue that just happened to be there the other day, and they were Georgia Gang fans, so thanks for that.
You guys are rock stars. And Lori will be back next week. Have a great summer. Right?